So now I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. Shelly Ramos serves as the Director of the Curriculum Division at the Texas Education Agency. Ms. Ramos provides statewide leadership on the implementation of new legislation and the State Board of Education mandates for K-12 education, including the state curriculum standards known as the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Prior to joining TEA, Ms. Ramos worked in educational publishing, developing products for social studies teachers and students. She also served as a classroom social studies teacher for 11 years. So let's welcome Shelly Ramos.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Great. I always say it's a great pleasure for me to be here to visit with y'all at this point in the process, and it's always very true. One of the things that we've been, and you, as many of you know, we've been seeing over the last probably 5 years now, is just increased interest, awareness, and excitement about career and technical education. And I keep thinking every couple of years, well, maybe it's going to die down at a certain point. It really hasn't at all. In fact, if anything, it continues to remain just as strong. You know, we saw the adoption of House Bill 5 in 2013. We're about to head into another legislative session in January. So it'll be 2 sessions later. And we continue to see really high interest and excitement related to career and technical education with our legislators and our policymakers, and that is a wonderful thing. So I think this is an exciting time to be a leader in CTE and to kind of watch and see what our state leaders are going to do next. So really, the point of my discussion with you this morning is really more to give you an update on all things related to curriculum. And at the Texas Education Agency, CTE is one of the many curriculum-related programs that we have, but we've got a number of others. So some of this may be directly related and relevant to the work that you do, but some of it may not. But we really do believe it's really important that as leaders out there, you be familiar with what's happening in the other program areas, because there's oftentimes ways that you can interact and involve with them. It's also just good information to know what you can expect to see on your districts and your campuses in the coming year or years. So first of all, just a little bit, we're going to give you a little bit of a TEKS update. You know that we made it through over a year-long process updating the CTE TEKS about this time last year. We think, fingers crossed, we have finally wrapped that process up as of April. So it's a very long process, but we're pretty much done. And we've moved into the next phase, which is implementation of those TEKS. So I'll talk a little bit about where we are with the TEKS. I will talk a little bit about updates related to our State Board of Education. So that's an area of responsibility that we have back at TEA in the Curriculum Division. And then I'll give you a couple of minor updates related to the Foundation High School program and graduation requirements. There are a few things, a couple of those touch on CTE, and you may already be aware of them. And then lastly, as time permits, I'll talk about a couple of interesting developments and updates related to our various programs. So the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, the TEKS or the TEKS, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I say it both ways. They're both correct. As you know, we've wrapped up CTE with some minor adjustments made in April, but the other subject areas, it's probably a good idea to know. One of the new courses that was developed during the most recent Career and Technical Education TEKS update was a personal financial literacy course that will satisfy a mathematics graduation requirement. That course is not the course that you see on this slide. That course is called, anybody know? Financial math, like a gold star there. So financial mathematics is the CTE course. It's a personal financial literacy course. It's in, I believe, the finance cluster, and it will help students to earn a mathematics graduation requirement. But the reason I'm talking about that course is because it's oftentimes confused with this course that's listed up here. Personal financial literacy, or we sometimes refer to it as PFL, I think the most important thing to know about it is it will not earn a student a math credit. It is a course in personal financial literacy. It is a half-credit course, whereas financial math is a one-credit course. It is a social studies course, whereas financial math, we've said, is a CTE course. But the board was required to adopt both. And over the last year or so, I frequently get questions from the field going, why on earth do we have these two? The legislature in 2015 said, State Board of Education, you shall adopt two new personal financial literacy courses, the CTE course for a math credit and a social studies elective course, and an elective 1/2 credit course for everybody else. So the board just decided to make it social studies. So first, please make sure you're familiar with that and that you can differentiate between the two courses, because we've seen a lot of confusion over the last few months. I think the social studies teachers, and I'm not to denigrate social studies teachers because I am one, but they're a little bit confused because they weren't part of the financial math process, and so they're a little bit confused by what the difference in the two courses is. We also have a couple of AP courses. There is a new, as of April, there is a new AP Computer Science Principles course, which hopefully some of you have heard about, especially if you're in the information technology career cluster. It is a technology applications course, but the College Board is very excited about this new course. It can be paired with content from any area, and in fact, that's how the course is designed to be offered, paired with a specific content area, and it really is going to serve as an introduction into more advanced computer science, and so the board is excited to add that to there. It really should say the word principles up there, AP Computer Science Principles, because we already have an AP Computer Science A course. And then lastly, this is just good to know, the board is going to be updating their AP Physics courses. In July, there are some name changes and structural changes to the AP Physics courses, and the board's just strictly going to update their text to reflect those changes. Yes, ma'am. It is not. It's a technology applications course. The question was, is AP Computer Science Principles a CTE course? It is a technology applications course, but it's designed where it could be taught in any content area. So you could certainly teach it as part of your, as a coherent sequence if you wanted to, in information technology. It could even, the example we were given, it could be taught as a fine arts course. If the content of the course is fine arts, it will still earn a student a Tech Apps credit, but the idea is that it should be interdisciplinary in nature and should be taught with content of a specific area. So this is a little bit about the personal financial literacy course. Yes, sir, you had a question? You can have a certification in, so first let me say, State Board of Educator certification has not finalized their rules for that particular course, but they will mirror computer science courses. So you can have, there are some CTE certificates that would allow teachers to teach that course, CTE teachers to teach that course. And so those rules just went up before the State Board for Educator certification on Friday. They probably won't be, they will not be finalized until their next meeting in 2 months. So back to PFL, and this is why it's important for those of you in this room. What the law says is that, the law that was passed in 2015, it says that every district that offers high school courses is required to offer a personal financial literacy course to its students. And they went on so far as to say, this particular course is the course that has to be offered to students. And over the last, well, since the bill passed and was signed into law last summer, we have gotten very frequently the question, can financial math satisfy that? Can money matters satisfy that? Can dollars and cents satisfy that? The answer is no. The law is very specific and says that this 1/2 credit social studies elective PFL course has to be offered to all students. So that's just an important point of clarification. Many of you are nodding your heads, so you probably already know that. We just wanted to make sure that we specify that for you. So, yes ma'am, question? So that is very much like the computer science principles. State Board for Educator certification just saw that rule on Friday. They haven't finalized it, but what's been proposed is social studies, economics, and then there are some business certificates that will certify a teacher to teach that course. Yes, sir.
Hi, Shelly. Travis Waddell, Region 10. There's two things I wanted to touch on to just get clarification because I'm constantly asked that. With the financial math, if I'm correct, that is a third-tier math.
That is correct.
So that'll be equivalent to math models.
Yes.
Essentially. Now, but at the same time, because of the way House Bill 5 is aligned, a senior could essentially take that post Algebra 2 or any other, fourth tier math, for lack of a better term. And then when we say has to be offered, and this is a catch, and please don't kill the messenger, offered versus taken are two different concepts.
Absolutely.
In other words, if you offered and no one takes it, you're still meeting the legal obligations from TEA.
You're absolutely correct, yes. So it falls under the State Board of Education's rules on the required curriculum. It just says that the students have to be given the opportunity to take the course. The students don't have to take personal financial literacy. And a district can offer it. You can make it available to students in a number of different ways. We don't yet have a personal financial literacy course approved in the Texas Virtual School Network, but when we do, and we are expecting that somebody will submit that, just being willing to enroll a student in the TEKS VSN catalog, if they wanted to take it, would satisfy the requirement that you've made it available.
Like his, so if a student is on an upcoming senior on our recommended plan, can their fourth math, if they've had Algebra 2, be the financial math?
That is an excellent question. So let me kind of paraphrase it for everybody. Can a student on the recommended program, so one of our older programs, or the minimum or the distinguished for that matter, I'll just cover all three, use financial math to satisfy a math requirement? They may not. It only counts for students on the foundation high school program. Okay. The board had not anticipated the addition of new courses. Because those are older graduation programs, they really don't have plans that we are aware of to go back and reopen those rules. So right now it's only for students on the foundation high school program. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I believe the only prerequisite to the financial math course, she asked about the order that can be taken. The only prerequisite is Algebra 1. So it can, while it's called the third math credit, it's not intended to denote a sequence. So as long as a student has taken Algebra 1, they'd be eligible to enroll in the financial math course. So of course, students on math, they have to have a credit in Algebra 1 and a credit in geometry. This would satisfy the third math credit. And then students who are going on to an endorsement would have to have a fourth credit of math after that. Or at some point. I didn't mean to say after because there's no sequence. Yes? The certifications for financial math? For the personal financial literacy. And I believe actually they're probably going to be the same as the ones for financial math. So a social studies composite, economics, and there are a couple of business certificates that are on the list, the same ones that we used for financial mathematics. Now, that's what the board has preliminarily approved. We would imagine that they won't make any changes to that in the future. Okay, great questions. I appreciate them. All right, so in 2016, those are the only three courses in 16-17, or there are just three specific courses that are going to be implemented. Well, a few more if you count the AP. There are 4 AP Physics courses. But it's a pretty quiet year for us at the state level in terms of implementation of new TEKS, and we're pretty excited about it. But in 17-18, as you all know, and everybody in this room is gearing up for that, we've got the implementation of 2 subject areas. One is languages other than English, and that's the one that I'm sure you guys are really excited about. But then we also got CTE. So all those changes that were made to career and technical education courses are going to be implemented in the 16-17 school year. So you've got one last year to gear up, get the PD out, make sure everybody is aware of those changes, and implement. I'm not going to really spend time with you all because nobody seemed to get real perked up when I said languages other than English. Other than, I'll talk a little bit more about a language other than English course that you might be interested in just a few minutes. So there are some changes to it. If you're interested in this, you can certainly get a copy of the slides and share that with folks. But the ones that you're probably more interested in, and you probably know quite a bit about already, are the changes that took effect with our CTE courses. So There's new courses. There are several new courses. I know I keep telling people about the one that I'm excited about, which is the series of masonry courses, because as I was reading it, I was like, this sounds really exciting. It's something that I would like to take. And I think I told somebody the other day, when I retire, I want to take some of these courses. But we've got a number of new courses that will be implemented in 17-18. We've got the addition of several new courses that either already can or have already been approved by the board to satisfy graduation requirements, or that later this year, actually in 2017, we'll take to the board to add to graduation requirements. So we don't know at this point exactly what, because the board hasn't finished looking at them, but they have started identifying courses that can satisfy science and math requirements. I think those are the two areas. And then lastly, you've probably heard this many times. I know I've talked about it many times. The board made some adjustments, some structural adjustments. Well, we consider them to be structural. So there's the addition of lab courses and theory courses. In PEAMS, of course, the districts will have the option of offering just the theory or theory combined with lab. And the district wouldn't be able to split them up. And a district also would not be able to offer only the lab. So it's really a structural change more than anything else. And we're referring to them as corequisites. In other words, they have to be taken at the same time. All right, so that is what's happening in 17-18. But right now we've got some TEKS that are under review. And the first one is the LOTE course that I just mentioned a moment ago that I did want to talk to you about and spend a little bit of time talking about. So in 2015, the Texas legislature passed a bill that required the State Board of Education to adopt an advanced language course that is specifically intended to teach terminology and other language skills that a student in a particular profession would need to be able to work in that profession. And so the example I always think of are our healthcare technicians who are out there and quite frequently interact with people who don't speak English as a first language. So this course we're about to get underway in developing this advanced LOTE course. I keep calling it the advanced LOTE course because it's so new, it doesn't even have a name yet. But we do hope that by the late fall, we'll be taking TEKS for this course to the State Board of Education for adoption, for consideration and then for adoption. So we are bringing together a small group of educators, both from K-12 and from higher education. We've also got a couple of business and industry folks on the review panel that are going to be writing the TEKS for this course. The goal is that it will be language general, so it's not going to be Spanish for healthcare professionals. It will be able to suit any language. So, maybe if you're in the Houston area where there's a high prevalence of Vietnamese speakers, you could adapt it rather for Vietnamese. But if you're in another part of state, you could use any language that is relevant to your area. The other thing is it's not going to be profession specific. So that's really the biggest task and challenge for the committee that we're pulling together later this month is how can you write TEKS for this course so that it's not specific to a particular profession. So that's going to be, it'll be interesting to see what they're able to come up with. And that's why they're the experts and asked to be on this review panel. But the reason I tell you this is it has direct relevance to your CTE program. So it's a course to be on the lookout for in the fall and late in the winter of 2016 when it comes on the board's agenda. And we would certainly encourage you to take a look at it, provide feedback on it if you think if it's needed. I always tell folks that oftentimes our TEKS are only as good as the feedback that the board receives about it. So our committees do a great job of putting out a draft. Here are their recommendations, but they get perfected through comments. And so that's what we would really encourage you all. Either you or maybe you have some staff. I know we've got folks out at the districts who have worked in these fields, and they can speak firsthand to the language skills that students in these fields would need. So we'd love to hear any feedback that you may have. I would look for that in November to go before the State Board of Education. And then lastly, the board is currently reviewing and revising the TEKS for English language arts and reading and Spanish language arts and reading, and we hope that they'll wrap that up this fall and winter. So I'm going to actually skip over the timeline slides because I'm not quite sure how many of you are interested in that timeline. As I said, adoption so they'll have it for discussion in July. We expect first reading in September and second reading in November. But which TEKS are next? At the same time that we're doing this work, we're also about to start a streamlining process. And I don't know if any of you have heard, but the board has chosen to take on the challenge of trying to streamline, and they've identified 2 subject areas to go first. The first subject area is science. So those committees are being made as we speak and will be announced very shortly. They'll start meeting, we hope, this summer to make recommendations to the board about how to streamline the TEKS for science. It is specifically just the science courses. The board intentionally chose only 4 high school courses for the streamlining. They're going to streamline all the science TEKS for K through grade 8. But then when they hit high school, they're only going to do biology, chemistry, physics, and IPC. The other courses aren't on the table at this time for streamlining. So we're kind of really interested in this process. We'd be very eager to see what it's going to look like. Then the board has planned next year to undertake social studies streamlining. So if you're interested in that science process, the timeline is up here. Folks have been nominated to committees. We should be announcing those committees later this month. Then they'll convene in fall and summer, and we'll adopt those TEKS, we hope, in early 2017. So, moving on to State Board of Education, we've got a meeting coming up in about a month. The State Board will convene in Austin, as they do every summer. And a couple of items. One is, I mentioned just a moment ago, they're going to discuss the English and Spanish language arts and reading texts. But they're also going to talk about a study that they were required to, that the agency was required to do, House Bill 743 study, which is really related to student assessment. So the agency was required to conduct a study on the depth of the TEKS and what is accessible. And so that study was given to the board in April, but they're going to make some recommendations related to that study, we hope, at their July meeting. Up for first reading and filing authorization right here, we've got the required curriculum. The real change there is that they're adding the personal financial literacy course. So it's already in statute that says a district that offers high school level courses has to offer personal financial literacy, has to make it available. This is just going to add it to the board's rules. And then I mentioned the changes to AP Science courses. The College Board has changed their courses. We just need to get current with those changes to AP Physics. And so this is what that item will simply do. And looks like I had a slide that tells you exactly those 2 things. So personal financial literacy requirements, and then the changes to our science courses. So we are going to see some changes in the amount of credit that will happen. So those of you who recall or were part of the CTE TEKS review, we talked a lot about this idea of a range of credits. So we started it with CTE, and as the board moves through their rulemaking process, the board is going to be eliminating ranges in credit. So you all remember in CTE, 1 to 2 credits, that's a range. And a student in one district could earn 1 credit for it. A student in another district could earn 2. They're demonstrating proficiency in the exact same set of the TEKS. The board doesn't believe that that's equitable. We changed it for CTE, and now as we work through the other subject areas, the board will be changing it there. And this is one of those areas where they're doing that, or at least they're proposing doing that. So that's board. It's a fairly light meeting for us, which is unusual, but we're excited about that. Required curriculum and graduation requirements. If you've been paying attention to our State Board of Education meetings, they, in April, adopted changes to the Foundation High School program. How many of you are aware that they adopted changes to the Foundation High School program? A few people. This table all better raise their hand. Okay, so the changes are fairly minor, but we do anticipate, and this is something for you all to be very well aware of, that every year the board will probably reopen and refine those rules. So this year, they had some minor changes. A lot of it was cleanup, things that we realized in the first 2 years of implementation of the Foundation High School program that we either got wrong or that we forgot about or that wasn't working. So those are some of the changes. Next year, some of the changes in 2017 are going to be things like adding CTE courses that may satisfy a specific graduation requirement into those rules. They can't do that too far in advance because then, because your TEKS aren't in effect yet. So they're going to have to make sure that they align the timing of the implementation of the TEKS with their graduation requirement changes. But the changes that I'm going to talk about, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong one in there for you. There we go. The changes I'm going to talk about are going into effect August 22nd, 2016. So beginning with this coming school year, the 16-17 school year, that's when these changes will go into effect. And you may have heard a little bit about them. So one that probably doesn't impact you all too terribly much, although it could, is that students are required to complete for English graduation requirements English 1, English 2, English 3, and then a credit in an advanced English course. And there is at least one CTE course in that list of advanced English courses. The thing that the board, and that was really an oversight on TEA's part, we had neglected to add in from the law that the law specifies a particular sequence, and it says that English 1, 2, and 3 have to be completed before that advanced English course. So if your district is allowing students to use business English, or you've got students using business English for their 4th English, it has to come after completion of English 1, 2, and 3. All we're doing is clean up really on this one, on this first bullet, but it is coming as a surprise to people who weren't that familiar with what the law says. And like I said, that was an oversight. It should have been in the original graduation requirements, and it wasn't. Yes, sir. So as it currently stands, the language doesn't allow for concurrent enrollment, but one of the things that we're asked every year is what recommendations would you make to the legislature to tweak some things that aren't working, and this is definitely at the top of our list, is that at minimum we think it should allow for concurrent enrollment in 3 and 4, because for exact situations like you described, so that they could complete it. But if you have specific situations like that arise, what I would encourage you to do is contact us, and we can investigate, we can see what authority you have as a district, if there are any options for that student. The second requirement, or the second bulleted list here, is the one we've talked about a little bit. It'll add financial mathematics as a course that will satisfy the 3rd math requirement. So keep in mind, it may not satisfy the 4th. It's adding to the list along with math models, mathematical applications in agriculture, food and natural resources, digital electronics, and I'm missing one. There's a 4th one on that list. Yes, ma'am. They could a student, the question is, could a student take both math models and financial mathematics? The answer to that is yes, but one of them is not going to satisfy a math graduation requirement. They still need a 4th math, something from the list of courses that will satisfy the 4th math. And now that, if you recall, in the early years of the Foundation High School program, the board allowed mathematical models with applications, math models, to be a 4th credit. That was only temporary. That's been removed. That was only a 1-year transition. Yes, sir. Yeah, so you're correct. There are 2 lists in board rules, and hopefully everybody's clear on this. There is a list of courses that may satisfy the 3rd math credit, and there's a list of courses, and it's a different list, that may satisfy the 4th math credit. Math models, mathematical applications in agriculture, food, natural resources, digital electronics, and financial math are only on the 3rd math. They're not also on the 4th. So a student could take both. One's going to count as the 3rd math credit. The other's going to count as a state elective credit. They still need something from the 4th math list. Okay. Any other questions related to that? It was a great question. All right. So other changes. I think a lot of people, just about everybody, it feels like in the state, called to ask this question. The board in its original Foundation High School program rules said that it was going to eliminate computer science 1, 2, and 3 as foreign language substitutes in September of 2016. They have stricken that language. So students who want to pursue the computer programming languages as a language other than English may still do that with 2 credits in either computer science 1, 2, or 3. So that now becomes permanent. All they're doing is striking that, delete the language that would have expired it. And then this one was one, I mentioned some oversights on our part. And I remember the board adopted their rules for the Foundation High School program in January. And in February, very next month, I was at a CTE conference and somebody said, what about career prep? And we said, oh my gosh, we forgot about career prep. So we have remedied that situation. And career preparation 1 and 2 courses may now be used as the final course in a sequence under the 3 CTE endorsements. So under STEM, business and industry, and public services. So career prep 1 and 2 can now be that final course in the sequence, whereas before they couldn't. That means if you have any students that have already completed that sequence but not yet graduated, you can add that to their list. And then lastly, and this is an important one for lots of people. I think it has slipped by a lot of folks out there. You know that, of course, a student can use a course as both a foundation high school program requirement and an endorsement requirement. So the example I like to give, because I'm a social studies person, is U.S. history. So a student can satisfy their U.S. history requirement on the foundation high school program. It's one of 3 credit requirements in social studies. They can also use that as an endorsement requirement, so they can use that to satisfy their arts and humanities endorsement. What the board now has gone one step further and said they can use that same course on more than 1 endorsement. So I could also use it to earn both an arts and humanities endorsement and a multidisciplinary studies endorsement. So that's an added piece of flexibility. I think it's great. I think for the counselors in the room, I know you're probably like, your hair's on fire because how are you going to track all of that? It's the importance of grad plans. But it is a good benefit for students. And then lastly, the last change, and this may or may not directly relate to the work that you do, but it's certainly good to know, especially if you're a counselor. So the one change that the board made is a little unexpected, and I think it just deserves a little explanation. So the board has eliminated almost all of the AP courses from their list of courses that can satisfy graduation requirements. And when you look at those rules, you might think, oh my gosh, AP can't satisfy any of these courses, AP and IB. That's not exactly correct. They've taken them out as specific references, but there's language in board rule currently that covers that. And essentially, and I'll show it to you in a moment, it says that a student can use an AP course as a substitute for a required course when it's appropriate. So the situation that happened is English 1, 2, and 3 being required to be completed before the 4th credit in English, and it was creating some problems related to AP English courses. The only solution to that was to eliminate those courses so that a district has the most flexibility possible, and now local districts will determine which AP courses are appropriate substitutes for required courses. So here is the language in administrative code, if you feel like reading a little code this morning. It says that AP and IB courses may be used as substitutes for a required course. So taking it back to the AP US history, I always go back to social studies. So AP US history, a district could decide is an appropriate substitute for US history studies, which is required for high school graduation. And they make that decision. They don't need any approval. That doesn't need to be on the board's list, and it's always been the case. But in other instances in the board's rules, they specifically listed every single AP and IB course, and that's no longer necessary in most instances, because this rule right here says that districts have the authority to go ahead and use that course to substitute as appropriate. So what it really did is it said, for you, if you're a district and you want to offer AP English language and composition as a 4th math or 4th English, you can do that. or if you want to offer it as a third, you have the option of moving them around as you see fit, as is appropriate. What you can't do is what I originally said is use that AP language course to satisfy math credit. There are specific guidelines in the rules that says it has to be the same content area. But it needs to be a decision. It's going to be a case-by-case decision as appropriate being the key thing. But really what that does is it gives maximum flexibility to our local school districts. So if you're looking for all these rule changes, of course, hopefully you know where to find the rules on graduation requirements. For students who entered high school prior to the 14-15 school year, if they have not transitioned over to the Foundation High School program, they're graduating under TEKS Chapter 74, Subchapter B. Any student who entered high school in 14-15 and beyond is graduating under Subchapter B, Foundation High School program. And of course, to make it just a little bit more complicated, of course, you know, and this is an issue we continue to deal with, the law says that a student who entered before the Foundation High School program started can at any time prior to graduation request to move to a different graduation program. So especially, you know, we saw this a lot at the end of the year. It's a student's choice. They may elect to graduate Foundation if they choose to do that. And oftentimes we will guide counselors which program is going to help the student meet their graduation requirements. You know, you want to be as flexible as you can and help meet the student's needs. The last thing I want to share with you is our Texas Gateway. And how many of you are familiar and have gone on the Texas Gateway in the last few months? How many of you once upon a time used Project Share? Okay, a few more people. So Texas Gateway has essentially taken the place of Project Share. We refer to it now as the Gateway. And we started that process in the early spring of transferring courses into the Gateway. And we've got a fair number of them in there right now. But that's where, for example, your CTE professional development online courses, we've slowly started adding those to the Gateway. There's a lot more of them to come over the summer months, but that's where all of these courses will live, is on the Texas Gateway. There's also a number of resources there for some of the foundation subject areas. And as we gear more up in our professional development in the coming years, it's all going to live on the Texas Gateway. And it's just simply texasgateway.org if you're not familiar with it. And if you've noticed, how many of you received the Current Technical Education listserv from TEA? Oh, I want to see more of those hands go up. Y'all need to sign up for that. It's a great resource. We post a notice every time a new CTE online course goes into the Gateway. That way you know it's ready, it's available, and your teachers can go and start signing up for it. So it's a great resource. I'd really encourage you to take a look around, poke around the Gateway if you have an opportunity. All right, so I think you all did a great job of asking questions as we went, but are there any questions, anything else we need to wrap up on?
I just had, I was going to say, this is a stupid question, and then they hand me a mic. But anyway, on your science courses, are there certain science courses that are only third year and certain science courses that are only fourth year? Are all science courses going to be fourth year science?
That list is almost identical. I can't think of any changes between the list for third science and fourth science.
Okay.
I believe it's an identical list. I can confirm that for you, though. Questions in the back?
Can you, hi, John Holm from Church Cibolo. Can you speak to the bullet point there on the last slide that you showed on Texas Gateway where it talks about exporting to the local LMS?
Yes, so there are lessons. I'm sure we hit a mic, so I hope everybody heard that question. The last bullet here says that districts and teachers can export the courses and the lessons that are on the Gateway to their local learning management system. So one of the slides that I'll show you in just a moment, we've got a number of what we call on-track lessons up on the Gateway, and those are now exportable from the LMS. So if you want to make them available locally, like in your student labs or something, you're able to do that via your LMS. We're really excited about that. And if you have technical questions about that, your ESC representatives, there's a gateway representative at each ESC, they can help you. And then there's staff at TEA that can also help you with that. All right. Other questions before? I was going to show you some of our gateway slides to make sure that folks here are pretty familiar with them. So this is our launch page. Once you get to the gateway, you can get in there from here. Just below this, and I didn't get you a screenshot of this, but if you scroll down, we always post featured resources. So if you don't get our CTE listserv, for example, and you want to know what the new resources are as we load them during the summer, you can just scroll down to the featured resources and take a look at them there. We're adding them, I think, probably at the rate of 1 or 2 a week. But for those of you who aren't familiar, folks can voluntarily sign up, parents and students, they can sign up to register for the gateway. They can also access it without registration, as can teachers, administrators, anybody. The benefit to registering is that you can kind of create your own personal dashboard. And that way, any resources that you use frequently, especially, for example, if you want to keep all the CTE courses in one spot, you can add them in there so that you could come back to your dashboard and get to them anytime that you'd like to. So that's a little bit, and you can see kind of a screenshot of what a dashboard might look like. But this is the featured resources part, a small screenshot of what it looks like. So I mentioned that if you scroll down on the page, you can see what those featured resources are. And you can see a few of them here as we put them in there. There's a lot of, right now, a lot of math and science lessons. We've got our science safety online course in there. We've got a few now CTE courses that have been uploaded to the gateway. So they're there as well. I mentioned those on-track lessons. The on-track lessons are primarily focused on the assessed subject areas and grade levels. So there are on-track lessons for all of our high school assessed subjects, as well as most 7th and 8th grade areas as well. So if you needed, or if you knew somebody who needed additional help, remediation, this would be a great thing. These you can download to your district's LMS if you wanted to. You could export them to that. It's particularly helpful. They are student lessons. So a lot of our courses on the Gateway are teacher online PD courses. On-Track is specifically geared at students. So it's a slightly different resource. And then, of course, there's the professional development for teachers. And so CTE 101, how many of you all are familiar with that online course? Good, I'm seeing lots of hands go up. That will, Diane, is that on the Gateway yet? It is on the Gateway. It's one of our CTE courses that have been uploaded to the Gateway. We're adding them, like I said, a couple every week, so make sure you keep up with that list. Teachers can come in, enroll for those online courses, and complete their PD online, which is a great resource. And then we've got a few other things. We've got the ELPS academies available. Here is our list right here. The second bullet has all of our CTE courses that are in there currently. And you can see the ones that these are live right now. And then over the summer, staff is working frantically to get a few more added. And I will show you that on the next slide. And these are the things that are coming this summer. So several online courses that we're going to be uploading in the coming months, weeks and months. So that's a little bit about our Gateway. Hopefully that's good information for you all. And I want to encourage you to take advantage of that. So in closing, since I saw that there were quite a few people that said that they had not signed up for the CTE listserv, I'm going to do my plea, and I'm going to put up a slide in just a moment to show you how to sign up for the CTE listserv. So it's a really critical thing, and I'm going to just skip over. I've got some slides here that I'm going to jump over. So the curriculum division at TEA is responsible for all of these different listservs. And for those of you who have signed up for them, this is what I tell my friends who are still at the district or in classrooms. I said one of the best ways that you can look really, really smart is by signing up for these listservs, because we put out information as it's available. I'm always shocked to find out how few people know about our listservs. But you can sign up for one for CTE or for any of these other areas that are appealing to you. We also have a counselor's listserv that you'll see when you go to the website from the drop-down. You can select that one. You can look just really smart because you know things before anybody else knows them as you're signed up for the listserv. So how do you sign up for them? You go to this website, and you do have to register. It's fairly simple and painless. And then there's a drop-down menu where you can select the various listservs that you might want to sign up for. Sign up for as many or as few as you'd like. I would encourage everybody in this room to absolutely sign up for the CTE listserv. The other one that I would recommend to you, and I'm going to, after people take their pictures, I'm going to wait and go back. The other one that I would recommend to you is oh my goodness, and it's not on here, and it needs to be. It's called To the Administrator Addressed. That is probably the single most important listserv at the agency to sign up for. It is not curriculum specific, so you're going to get announcements from school finance and from assessment, and you name it. You'll see it there, but it's probably the most important information that the agency puts out. Okay, so, and now back again, for those of you who are still writing down the address for this listserv. But absolutely really important. I'll tell you a personal story. My sister last year became an assistant principal for the first time, and I would periodically text her things that I thought she needed to know, and she'd say, "Is there not a way that I can figure this all out?" And I was like, "Yes, sign up for the listserv." And now her principal just thinks she's like the smartest person ever because she knows all this stuff. There's also one that you can sign up for the press releases, TEA press releases. You can sign up to have those sent to your email, and you find out about things like that. So we put out a press release Friday evening, and my sister is texting me back to say, "Oh," and she sounds really smart. She knows these things before her administrators know it, and she's very excited about it. So that's the secret to success, I think, is our listservs. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much. I am going to end a couple of minutes early. Certainly, I'll do one last call for questions if anybody has come up with a question. I just want to stop by saying thank you all very much for the work that you do. You know, serving our students and helping our students to be successful is absolutely the most important thing that we do as educators. And you guys are out there on the front lines every day, and we certainly appreciate all the energy and all the passion that you put into it. And if we can help in any way, please don't ever hesitate to contact us. That's what we're here for. Thank you.